name is Jack Wallen, and this is take 2 of this video because I mistakenly left the door open and one of my kitties got down here and was having an adventure. She kept meowing at me and I knew that shenanigans were on the table, so I had to stop, pick her up and take her upstairs. Anyway, back to the reality. So I'm downstairs in the basement because I kept filming all of these videos in our beautiful, wonderful house, and every time I filmed them and I tried to color grade them and edit them, and I kept coming up thinking, this really stinks, this looks terrible, I don't know what I'm doing, and it relates to what I want to talk about right now. And it's an ugly, ugly topic, and it's one that I have discussed ad nauseum in videos, in classes, in panels, at conventions, one-on-one with artists, you name it, and this discussion has come up. And in fact, last night my wonderful wife and I were having dinner with her daughters, my stepdaughters, and it came up again. This time with the youngest stepdaughter, who happens to be a fantastic hairstylist. She takes after her mother. She came in and she wanted to show us a before and after picture of a client she had done yesterday. And she told us that the client, she hadn't seen her for a couple of years, and she had hair halfway down her back, and she had done box color and it looked terrible. And she showed us the before picture. And then she told us what she did to fix it. And then she showed us the after picture, and it was gorgeous. It was absolutely fantastic. It was beautiful. And at the same time, she said, I feel like an imposter. I feel like a failure. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And I look around me and I see all of these other, she's pretty heavy on TikTok. She sees all these other hairstylists on TikTok doing these things, and it makes her feel like she's less than. And it unfortunately trickles down into her personal life, and she makes her even more feel like less. More feels like less. Like she's less of a person or less of a professional. And she looked at me, she's like, what do I do? How do I get beyond this? And I sadly enough, I had to look her right in the eye and say, you really never get beyond this. If this is something, if you really truly care about your craft and about being the best that you can be, no matter how good you are, imposter syndrome will always be just 1 or 2 steps behind you, ready to tap you on the shoulder and say, you're not good enough. All of these people around you are so much better than you. And it is exhausting. Not just exhausting, it's defeating. I have, as both a writer and an actor, I have suffered from imposter syndrome for decades. And eventually, I finally reached a place where I no longer let it have any say in my life. And I thought I would share with you how I've managed to do that. Now, in my stepdaughter's case, my advice to her was very simple. And this is because she relates directly to, she has an immediate connection and give and take with her clients. I asked her, what do your clients think about your work? And she said, oh, they love it. They hug me, they tell me they love me, they say that their hairs never look better. And I said, okay, why can't you let that be the thing that defines your trust in your ability? She said, I don't know. And I said, that's the problem. Artists tend to be overthinkers. We look at what we've done, and all of a sudden our brain starts worrying and worrying and worrying and worrying and finding the flaws in it. It's the very same thing that when we look in the mirror, which I very rarely do, because I mean, why would I? We look in the mirror and all we see is our flaws. And sometimes all it takes is to look in the mirror with a different set of eyes, and I mean that metaphorically, of course, and see the good things. There's and I know it is a remake of a song, but Susie and the Banshees did this remake of The Looking Glass, and the chorus is, "Even the greatest stars dislike themselves in the looking glass." And it always makes me think of what happens when the most beautiful people in the world look at themselves in the mirror, and you absolutely know that all they see are their flaws. When everyone around them, when the public at large looks at them and sees, I don't know, perfection? I mean, not really perfection, but the pinnacle of beauty. And it just proves that all of us, every single one of us, are vulnerable to this. So how do you get beyond it? How do you stop allowing imposter syndrome to have control over you? Well, the first step is to trust yourself, is to trust that you have done what you do enough that you know what you're doing. I have written over 60 novels. And anyone in their right mind would look at that number and say, well, obviously you know what you're doing. I mean, think about it. Think about how many sentences I have written over the years. And, you know, they say it takes 10,000 hours to master something. Well, I have spent well over 10,000 hours as a writer. So it should be a simple fact of me saying, well, I've gotten this far, I've done this much, and no one has ever said my work sucks. My editor calls me writer extraordinaire. Readers comment, they reach out to me and say how much they loved my books. And at some point, I just had to go, okay, well, I must be doing something right, because people are reading my books and they're not hating my books, and my publisher loves my books, my editor loves my books. So why don't I just let them be the ones that define whether or not I'm an imposter? While at the same time, always, and this is just inherent in who I am, always striving to be the best. Last night, I've told you about how my writing process is. I write 1,000 words, and then I close the file. The next night, I open the file, I read the 1,000 words I wrote the previous night, and then I continue on. And as I'm reading, I edit, and then I continue on. So last night, I come across a sentence that I had written, and it stopped me in my tracks. And my first thought was, how did I write something so bad? It was so bad that I couldn't understand even what I was trying to say. And it stood out. It's like, this is just wrong. And I read it, and I read it, and I think I read it maybe 15 or 20 times. And I said, I know I was trying to say something here, but what was it? And how was I able to write something so off that even I can't figure out what I meant to say? And after about the 15th or 20th read, I was like, oh, it does make sense. I was looking, there was one particular word that was throwing me off. But then I thought, okay, someone else is going to have that reaction to this sentence. So I spent about 5 minutes on this one sentence, just making it right, making sure that no one would come across this sentence and go, I don't get it. And that happens to me all the time. I will read a sentence that I've written and go, I got to make that better. I have this can't fly. And that's before my editor touches it. And so that quest to be the best really pushes me, sometimes in ways that I shouldn't allow myself to be pushed. But at the same time, I know that I'm going to be better for it. And every time I learn something, I know that I've grown. And I have to always remind myself that growth is the enemy of imposter syndrome. And if I can keep growing, if I can keep improving my craft, either my writing or acting craft, then I am always one step ahead of that looming specter of imposter syndrome. And for me, now this is very personal, for me, imposter syndrome always catches up to me when I kind of get lazy with bettering my craft. And any time I look back on days, weeks, months, whatever, and I say, I'm getting lazy there, then all of a sudden I start thinking, oh, yeah, I'm not good enough. But every time when I read something that I've written the previous night and I improve it and I tweak a sentence, change a word, make something more clear, or sometimes make my prose a little bit more poetic, it's almost like I get to breathe a sigh of relief, because I have effectively tripped that looming specter of imposter syndrome, and he is laying on his ass trying to get up in all of his robes, and because I always imagine the imposter looks like the Grim Reaper, and while he's struggling to get up, I'm moving forward. And there is no way that imposter syndrome can catch up with me as long as I am always striving to improve. I've said this over and over again, that one of the most important things for me when I start writing a new book is that it's better than the one I just wrote. And some people might think, well, does that mean your previous books are bad? That's up to you. That's not up to me. And that right there is also very key in getting beyond imposter syndrome, is that every artist is hypercritical of what they do. Every one of them. And the hyper is like, not here, it's up here. Because every one of us look at, I can watch myself on film, or I can listen to myself in a recording, or I can read something I've written and think, well, I could have done that a lot better. While at the same time, other people are looking at the same thing or reading the same thing and thinking, wow, that's really good. And those two opinions, for some odd reason, they never want to kind of come together and get into sync. So when that happens, I defer to the other people. It's not that I'm reaching out to them saying, hey, come on, is my work good? I don't do that. I don't want to do that. I never, ever. I don't ask for props. I'll ask for criticism, But I don't ask for people to pat me on the back because I don't learn anything from getting patted on the back. And that's really the single most important thing for me, is to always be learning, always to be improving, because I know if I'm not, imposter syndrome is going to catch up with me, wrap his dirty, stinky, slimy fingers around my neck and squeeze until I just don't believe in a damn thing I do. And I know that it's cold comfort to know that every artist struggles with this. Even after I told my stepdaughter that, it didn't help her. But when I told her, when I asked her, what do your clients think of your work? The light went off over her head. And I just had to remind her, always let that be the litmus test for your talent. Don't look in the mirror and judge yourself. Let other people do that for you, because they're seeing you with unbiased eyes. I've been looking at like I said, I don't look at myself in the mirror very often because of this very thing. But I've been looking at myself for decades, and I always see the same thing. I always see the same face. I always see the same flaws. You know, the first thing I look at is my smile, because right over here when I was a little baby, I bit into an electric cord, and it kind of melted my mouth. And that's one of the reasons why I don't smile very much, because I hate my smile, and which is sad because my wife loves my smile, and so it's a fight, and I'm always fighting this, and I don't win. I don't win this battle, because the minute I start smiling, my brain goes, no, remember that scar on your lip? It's going to make you look silly. People are going to go, but they don't. And that's the thing. That's the important thing, is that, sure, you can look at a celebrity or a model or whatever, and you can see their smile and you think, oh, that's such a beautiful smile. But the thing that we forget is that it's not the physical. It's not the shape of the lips. It's not the color of the teeth. The smile, the beauty of the smile is in the intent, is what brought the smile about. Like when my wife goes on a trip, and if she's gone for a day, 2 days, 3, it doesn't matter how long she's gone. When I go pick her up and I see her walking through security and I see her, my face just lights up. And she's always like, that's the smile I love so much. And that's when I have to remind myself, it's not about the look. My wife loves that smile because she knows that smile happens because I see her. So why would I allow imposter syndrome to trip me up on something as silly as a scar on my mouth? It gets us in so many different ways, and we're always fighting it. But the truth is you just have to let go of it. It does you no good to allow imposter syndrome to take hold of you. No good at all. Ask yourself that question. What good is this? What good will come of me thinking I'm an imposter? Of walking into a room with my peers and immediately thinking that I'm not good enough to be in this room with these people. You are. You are good enough. Because, and let me give you a little secret here. They're probably thinking the same thing. Way back when I was in high school, I did speech and debate. I didn't do the debates part. I did the speech part. I did duo. I can't remember what they were called. Duo and solo and terp or whatever. I don't remember. But I did that for a few years. And it got to the point where I would walk into a room to do, because we would all gather in a room and there was a judge and blah, blah, blah. I would walk into the room and you could see the look on the people's face. And the look was like, oh no, it's him. I got to compete against him. What I didn't tell them was I was thinking the same thing. It goes both ways. Of course, I never let that get to me. I never let them thinking, oh no, it's him, elevate my ego. Because I believe that if you counter imposter syndrome with ego, you are diving down a very dangerous rabbit hole, because that leads to arrogance. And arrogance will do you no good, especially in an artistic endeavor. Don't be that person. Anyway, it's the important thing for you to remember. There are several important things for you to remember. Number one, every artist suffers from imposter syndrome. Every single one of them. And if you've come across an artist who says they don't, they be lying. And number two, stop judging yourself. Stop comparing your work to the work of other people, because your work is unique to you. And when your work is unique to you, there is no comparison. And that's the beautiful thing about developing your writer's voice or your acting style, is that no one can copy you. Because if they do, it's obvious. And if someone copies you, guess what? They're the imposter. Thank you so very much for spending a little time with me here in my basement. Eventually, I will settle on something and I'll do it with some sort of consistency, so you're not like, oh, where is he now? How bad is this going to look this time? So maybe this will work. Maybe this is the thing for these videos. But anyway, thank you so very much for giving me your time. I know it's precious. I know you have a lot of things to do, and I know that I tend to blather on quite a bit. But it means so much to me that you're willing to listen to me. I hope that these words have helped you. You're not an imposter. You're not. Just let that go, because it's not going to do you any good. But at the same time, always strive to improve and be the best you can be. Be the best artist, be the best human, be the best friend, be the best husband, wife, lover, sister, brother, grandfather, whatever. Just be the best you can be. Spread some kindness. And I hope that every single one of you and the people that you love have a wonderful, wonderful day.